as well that this event will be recorded and shared with participants during the conclusion late next week, November 4th, after we close out all the sessions for the day. So if you don't get a chance to take a picture or grab any contact information, we can definitely forward that to you. Okay, I'm going to pause really quick because my sound is apparently cracking. So I am going to join the audio through my phone. Part of this slight technical difficulty, I want to make sure that you'll be able to hear me throughout the session.
What we're going to do in the meantime, while Christine is trying to work on her audio, my name is Maria Quiros, and I'm the interim small business manager. I'm going to go ahead and introduce our panelists this morning. And this morning we have Courtney Thornton from Hudson.
Can you hear me?
Oh, there she.
Okay. Please give me a thumbs up if my audio is okay. All right. All right, thank you for your patience, everyone. All right. So I am going to pick up. I'd like to welcome you to our airport concessionaire panel session today. My name is Christine Pham, Program Manager of Small Business Development Department, and today I will be your host and also moderator for the question and answer box. I want to thank each and every one of you here today that has been willing to be a part of this panel, and every participant today. We're very pleased to welcome you to our Meet the Prime panel. This is the first time that we've done something like this. We've had Meet the Primes now since 2015, and it's typically in person. It's been great having the interest year by year and having a growing increase of attendance. So we wanted to make sure that we can do that this year, regardless of the circumstances. You may have remembered that last year at Balboa Park, we had at least about 500 attendees and 60 exhibitors, and we've had great feedback, and ask can we please continue having the airport host this, because it's a great way for people to make those connections, build those relationships, build the rapport that you can't always do over the phone, and definitely different virtually as well. And although the year has been a whirlwind, we're glad that we were able to pivot to host this event virtually to provide small local veteran businesses, historically underutilized businesses, the opportunity to connect and learn from our prime concessionaires and key stakeholders about all this valuable information in elevating their business. In today's concessionaire panel, you will hear from 5 panelists who are our concessionaire operators and have existing contracts with the International Airport. Each panelist will share about their company, from the impactful, successful moments that they've had to critical decisions that they've had to face to make sure that the future looks bright for the company. And they'll also share nuggets of wisdom on how small business can position themselves for success and concession contract opportunities. I want to introduce the full panel. Not sure if Maria has done it already. Thank you so much for taking over for me while I was fixing my issue. we have Courtney Thornton from Hudson Group, Iris Messina from HMS Host, Shane Robinson from S&C Robinson Enterprise, Heather Berry from SSP America, and Sarah Inverman from S-Levy Foods. Thank you so much, panelists, and looking forward to hearing all your panel presentations today. And before we begin the panel presentation, just wanted to get our feelers out there and get an idea of the crowd that we have today. So on your screen, a little pop-up poll box. Please go ahead and click on what applies to you, on what business size type does your business fall under, whether it be small business, medium, large business, if you happen to have the Airport Concession Disadvantaged Business Enterprise or ACDBE certification, or if you don't have that certification yet and you happen to be a small and minority business, it'd be really good for you to take a look at that certification, because that could add so much value to you and your business, giving you that competitive edge in competing for airport concession opportunities and even potentially partnering up with a large prime concessionaire operator. All right, so it looks like 31 of 44 has voted. And thank you, Maisel. Looks like that's enough time for the poll. So our results look like 52%. Wow, so we got over half of the crowd today, your small business. A quarter is medium to large size. We have non-certified ACBs that are minority and small businesses, so that's about 30%. Wow, and then 35% are ACB certified. I want to applaud to all of those that have gone through that certification process. It's not easy, very paper intensive, but hopefully that will help your business in some way or another. It's all about the timing. So that's great. And we have one other poll, question number 2. You can click as many that apply to you. And so click on what concession category below matches your firm. So from retail, food and beverage, passenger service, supplier, advertising company, vending company, duty-free, passenger lounge, or other. All right, we have almost 60% voted. All right, I think that should be good for this poll number 2. Let's go ahead and look at the results. So the categories today looks like we have 30% are in retail. Wow, so half are in food and beverage, none in passenger services, that's okay. Supplier, 27%, okay. No advertising companies today. 10% are vending companies. Wow, 13% duty-free, 7% passenger lounge, and more than 30%, so 37% are other. There's so many categories, couldn't fit all of them on here, but that is wonderful. It looks like we have a great diverse group today. So thank you so much for your participation in the poll. And without further ado, I'd like to bring Courtney Thornton from Hudson Group to the floor. Hi, Courtney. Thank you so much for being here today. And you have the floor.
Okay, thank you, and good morning to everyone. Again, my name is Courtney Thornton. I'm the Vice President of Partner Relations and Business Diversity for Hudson. First, I'd like to thank Christine and the airport staff for the opportunity to serve on today's panel. I participate in this event every year, the in-person event every year, and I was happy that the team found a way to continue the annual outreach. True story. Many years ago, I had the honor of serving as a board member for AMAC. I know many of you are familiar with the industry organization. And I would frequently joke with my colleagues about being the youngest board member. Sometimes it seems like it was just yesterday, but nowadays, as I participate in industry events such as this one, I can only grimace as I share that I've been in the airport industry now for 22 years. So I guess the joke is on me. Of those 22 years, almost 7 of them have been with Hudson. And that's been a very rewarding professional experience because in this capacity, I work with a plethora of ACDBEs across the country to provide concessions in airports. And in addition to our current ACDBE base that we partner with, we outreach. So I connect with so many new women and minority-owned businesses who likewise have the same interest. On our next slide, you'll see that Hudson has been a leader in travel industry for over 30 years. Once upon a time, Hudson was a standalone newsstand in LaGuardia's airport. Since that time, we've grown to over 1,000 stores in airports and commuter hubs, as well as major landmarks. Clearly, passengers recognize us when they see the big blue letters that spell out Hudson News or Hudson. But in addition to travel convenience, our business includes specialty retail, like such stores as Toomey and Mac, also duty-free locations, and food and beverage. So the pictures that you see in the slides provide a visual of some of these concepts. And we have really been fortunate to be anchored by some of the most recognized brands in travel retail. Over and over again, we see that travelers really are in tune to brands and they are loyal to the brands that they love. So we do our very best to just keep them coming. In the next slide, I'll share a little bit about our philosophy. We pride ourselves on being the traveler's best friend. That's actually a quote that comes from not Hudson, but one of Hudson's customers. And we live to deliver the wow factor. What comes to mind when you think about a wow factor in airport concessions? For us, it's things that will make our customers come back time and time again. Things like having reliable products in our stores, a memorable interaction, a consistent overall experience, or just that signature service from the staff in our stores, or the lasting visual. We often focus on lighting in our stores as well. And now, even more than ever, we are laser focused on a contactless environment. So these are some of the things that demonstrate our unique way of turning the world of travel, in essence, into a world of opportunity. On the next slide, you'll see that our travel convenience has been redefined. Last year in November, we embarked upon a company-wide rebrand of Hudson, from Hudson Group to Hudson. And that really was to capture the shift from travel retail to a travel concessionaire with a diverse portfolio of concepts. So while we've been known as a travel retailer, the rebrand really provided us with an opportunity to educate our customers and our landlords on a more diverse portfolio of concepts that we actually operate. With that rebrand, also brought a new logo. You can see it in my virtual background today. I think you can only see 4 parts. The 4 parts are intended to reflect and represent our people, our brands, our different locations, and last but not least, our customers. On the next slide, you'll see some of the concepts that Hudson currently operates in San Diego through our joint venture partnerships with certified ACDBE companies. In Terminal 1, we operate a Hudson Travel and Convenience store, a tech on the go where I absolutely promise you can find the hottest electronics and headphones and computer games. And in Terminal 2, we have the Lindbergh Field News and 2 specialty stores, Brookstone and Rip Curl. That reminds me, I want to give a big shout out to 2 companies who donated product and merchandise that we handed out at last year's San Diego Outreach event. That was Rip Curl donated some surfing caps and keychains, and Cali Corn donated big bags of specialty popcorn. Both were a big, huge hit. So really want to thank you again publicly for partnering with us in that regard. On the next slide, you'll see concepts that are operated by our ACDBE partners. In our joint venture model, the ACDBEs manage locations. And in San Diego's airport, our ACDBEs manage locations in Terminal 2. Epicure Group International manages a Sunglass Hut as well as a Hudson location. And Martinez Niebla manages a Warwick's of La Jolla, which is a bookstore. And the joint venture structure, I would say, provides resources and tools that are needed to ensure that the locations are operating not only successfully, but also consistent with brand standards. So this really is a huge benefit when it comes to joint venture partnerships. Next, we were asked to share some critical changes in decisions that our companies made to face the future. It's no secret that COVID-19 is forcing us to rethink the way we do business. So the next slide, the current slide that we're on, was created to demonstrate our flexibility and our almost immediate adjustment that was made to address the pandemic. That journey to recovery includes rethinking the layout of our store fixtures, as well as the design of each space and how we merchandise these stores. Clearly, the #1 priority has been safety, and that is for both our staff as well as customers. And it includes enhanced cleaning, integrating social distancing, and integrating social distancing in the shopping environment, but at the same time, trying to find creative ways to rebuild and maintain the personal experience that existed prior to COVID. Another key area in that regard is digital innovation. We've modified the checkout configurations to reduce almost all contact. We have tap and pay capabilities, and we've eliminated signatures on almost all transactions. And all of these changes have already been implemented in San Diego's airport. In addition to that, we have a company-wide initiative where we have PPE vending machines in 27 airports. While we don't have the PPE vending in San Diego, we carry that PPE merchandise in our news and gift locations. And so at the end of the day, we are continuously looking for new ways to innovate and automate within our stores. On the next slide, we were asked to provide some feedback on what should small companies be doing to position themselves for new opportunities. And you know, particularly at this challenging time, I think first and foremost, you have to look at recovery and survival. For existing businesses, you know, get a firm understanding of what you need to recover from the pandemic. You know, this involves looking into the terms of your existing joint venture agreements, evaluating your particular rent structure in place, and understanding any options that are available to extend your existing agreements. I mean, these are things that are happening in the industry to ensure that businesses will outlast the dips that we're seeing in passenger traffic currently. I would also say to maintain a connection with the prime companies because we work on these issues every single day. We have the benefit of comparing results from market to market, and we are working closely with industry organizations for long-term recovery. So make sure that you're maintaining that connection with the prime on these issues. It's also important to keep your certification current. Even though we're facing challenging times, you can't lose sight of the basic requirements that the federally regulated ACDBE program have in place. So make sure that you are current on your certification and that you maintain the required regular involvement in the business. Also, evaluate your financial capacity. Don't feel that you have to do this by yourself. Financial risk can certainly be complex, and so make sure you retain the help and the expertise that you need to properly manage through your financial decisions. And ensure that you're in good standing in your existing markets. You know, this market, this industry is a hurry up and wait business. And so while the current business may be slow, we are seeing upticks in traffic, and we are absolutely sure the traffic will recover. So make sure that your current business is in order so that when things begin to move quickly again, you have all your ducks lined up. And then finally, I'll share that I would, make your interest known to key staff in airports as well as prime company staff. Find ways to incorporate regular reminders. Many of us are managing significant volume, and it's easy to get distracted. But send some regular reminders so that your particular interest remains top of mind. And so thank you again. Appreciate the opportunity. That's the information that I have to share with you today. My contact information is here in the presentation, and I look forward to connecting with any new companies as well.
Thank you so much, Courtney, for your great presentation. I have a couple of questions I'd like to ask you. What's one tip of advice that you would have for a new or emerging small business that wants to be able to be a successful concessionaire?
Thank you, Christine. A very good question. Spoke a lot today about the existing ACDBE businesses, and the advice that I would give to a new company is consider what it is you want to do. Is it a joint venture relationship, partnership? Is it, would you like to be a supplier of goods and services? Or whatever that may be, find a company who has already done that. And they will have valuable feedback to provide you. Companies that are already in the business they've already gone through the certification process. They've likely already interviewed for an RFP opportunity. They know how to read a performer in this business. They understand what the key terms of joint venture agreements. And they have experience operating stores and airports. So I would say to you, find what it is you want to do and find someone who's done it already to provide you that guidance.
Great answers. And I just wanted to compliment and also admire the fact that you have a joint venture partnership, not just with 2 entities, but a total of 4 with Hudson, Epicure Martinez Niebla, Concourse Ventures. So that's impressive that you're able to sit down with with 4 entities total and really be able to work out all the details of what percentage makes the most sense for your joint venture. And the fact that you have shifted yourself to make sure that your company is positioned to recover from this pandemic. And I'm interested to know, with the PPE that's offered in your shops, is there a huge surge of purchases? Is that a huge percentage of revenue that comes in from PPE with the stores that offer PPE during the last 8 months or so since March?
Well, I'll certainly say that it's providing increased sales because there's a clear need for those items as we speak. So it varies from market to market, but clearly it's been a valuable addition to the merchandise that we carry in our stores.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Right, so thank you so much again. Next up, I'd like to introduce our panel number 1 and 2. We have from HMS Host, Mr. Shane Robinson, and Shane Robinson from SMC Robinson and Iris Messina from HMS Host. Please take the floor.
Thanks, Christine. And hello, everyone. Looking forward to chatting with you all. And before I go any further, I just wanted to echo Courtney's sentiments to Maria, Christine. I applaud you all for finding a way to win with respect to making our annual Meet the Primes event happen. Obviously, current circumstances has forced us all to kind of relook at things and get creative. And I applaud you all for taking the lead and making this happen rather than just quote unquote waiting till next year. So great job. And I appreciate your efforts in that regard.
Thank you so much, Shane. Thank you so much, Iris. We're glad that we're able to offer this.
Absolutely, absolutely. So without further ado, again, my name is Shane Robinson. I am the owner and managing director for S&C Robinson Enterprise. We are actually a joint venture partner with HMS Host at the San Diego airport. We've been with them going on 3 years. It's been a great opportunity. And so Iris and I figured we would just kind of talk and tag team with you all just about our experience. And I can give you some perspective specifically, kind of what my journey was, since, for the audience on here, you're going to pretty much start out in the same similar fashion or capacity that I did. But before I kind of go deeper into my story, I'm going to let Iris, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself as well?
Yeah. Good morning, everybody. Pleasure to be here. And thank you, Christine, Maria, and the entire San Diego team for organizing us to all be together virtually. I'm the Vice President of Business Development for HMS Host, one of the largest food and beverage operators in transportation. I've been in the industry for just shy of 20 years. I think we're going on 19, yikes. Anyhow, Shane and I, when we were talking about this presentation and some of the questions that Christine was asking us, we kind of got together and thought, this is a partnership and we do everything together. There's equity from each of the partners. It's a business marriage. And we thought about the audience and all of you that were going to be here joining us today. And we thought, you know what, let's kind of turn this a little bit, because a lot of times you hear from just the primes and the larger operators in the industry, but it would really be probably more helpful if they heard from Shane, S&C Robinson, and the journey that they have gone through, what their experience has been and challenges, because it's the path that most of you are going to be walking. So without further ado, Shane, I'd love for you to kind of talk to us about you and S&C Robinson as a whole, and then we can talk, more about our relationship at San Diego.
Sure, absolutely. Next slide, please. So, like I said, we actually got into the business in 2011. Ironically, our opportunity actually came out of a loss. We were pursuing an opportunity and an RFP that didn't work out, and it just so happened that another door opened at JFK Terminal 4. That is where we actually made our beginnings. Still there. It's been an absolutely awesome experience. But once again, I will kind of just underscore the fact that if I were to rank some of the most important components of getting in this business and being successful, I'm going to consistently put relationships at the top of the equation. It matters. It will always matter. And no matter how innovative what you have might be, it's really the relationship and the value you bring to that partnership, whether it be with the airport or with a prime company or another partner that's really going to make the difference for you. Next slide, please. So really, and we actually evolved since that point. We're actually in 5 locations now across the country. As you can see, once upon a time, I did do a pretty good job with frequent flyer miles since I live in Georgia. But really, our growth has been very intentional, and I think we did it the right way. There's one, we all want to get as much business as we can, but you also got to understand that there is a level of risk and capital associated with each of those. And I'm very proud of the fact that we were able to grow consistent with our means of actually, having the financial means to participate and do what's necessary to function as a joint venture partner across the country. These all didn't come at once. They just kind of came in the cadence of relationships and opportunities and making sure we were there and had the financial means to participate. The growth component, it's very critical because again, you can grow too fast. This business is volatile. I think we're all seeing that right now. And the last thing you want to do is find yourself in a situation where one day you are high-fiving and excited about pursuing those opportunities, and the next day you're trying to figure out how to meet your servicing needs, not to mention just your operational costs that exist in the airport. Iris, anything you want to add on that line?
Well, I think part of what makes our relationship work and how we kind of came together was, it came to those relationships. I mean, we were introduced by, I think there was an industry conference and just somebody who happened to know somebody. It was a banking relationship formed at a CEO industry conference, and just the stars aligned and we came together. The keys to how we came together, really, the kudos I would give to S&C Robinson Enterprise for their diligence and their patience. This is an ACDB company that had a solid business background, an excellent reputation that preceded them. And then they also had their access to capital. They had their ducks in a row. They had done their homework and they were prepared to enter into a business arrangement, whether that was independently or with a prime as a joint venture partner or sublet to a joint venture.
Thanks, Iris. Next slide, please. So really what it boils down to, when I think about kind of the lessons I've learned along the way, and certainly this was not an easy transition. I learned a lot the hard way looking back in 2011. But just to kind of underscore what I talked about as far as those relationships goes in, it's no coincidence that I have that at the top of my list. The partnering approach. It's understanding your business, understanding what you want to pursue. And then also having a very clear mind about your intended audience and who would you like to partner with in making your business dreams a reality as far as operating in the airport. And you got to market yourself. That marketing is not so much being boastful and bragging, but just merely saying that you have the financial capacity, you've got the business acumen and understanding to contribute to the success that is expected to happen once you step foot inside of the walls of an airport, whether it be from a concession, food and beverage, supplier, whatever that capacity is. You've got to make yourself the most viable candidate for someone selecting you if you're looking at the joint venture model. I would also be remiss if I didn't stress the fact, I believe there was about a 27% percentage of the poll I saw out there that wasn't ACDB certified. If you have any interest in functioning in airports, I would strongly encourage you to go take care of that process. That is a big box to check that gets you in a category of consideration that just may not exist without it, no matter what your best efforts are. So If there's something for those individuals out there, that if there's something out there that's keeping you from doing that, or you have some concerns, I would certainly like to talk with you and convince you otherwise, because that is probably as important a part of the process as anything as far as entering this business. Obtaining capital, that's a no-brainer. It is not cheap. It is not cheap what we do. In airports, it is a barrier to entry, make no mistake, but it can be overcome. I think as time has evolved, I will just share with you, our means of capital came through a bank. And this is back in the time where banks really were not taking a serious look at the viability of putting funds out there for someone to pursue business in airports, merely because you just cannot collateralize what you're doing in the business. But we were fortunate that we took baby steps and made a case for our bank, and that bank is still with us to this day, and they've helped us grow and get into those 4 additional airports since the days of JFK. And then lastly, keep your day job. And let me just clarify what I mean by that. This is not about less of a priority in the airport. When I started this, I was working for another company. And when I was convinced I was wanting to do this, there was obviously a significant capital sum that was needed for me to get into that business. I didn't have the means of paying myself. I had to still take care of my family. So from 2011 through 2016, my sole purpose in life was to get into the business, meet my my debt servicing financial obligations and the operational costs, and understanding that there was no room to pay Shane anything. So I had to maintain some other source of income as I grew my business. In 2016, I made the decision to make this my complete focus. And ironically, I got a little uncomfortable with that, and I made the decision to go back and continue working again. And I'm still just as involved as I've ever been in what we're doing, and understanding what's happened with this pandemic. It's probably a blessing I did. So there's really kind of 2 lessons there. Really understanding, you pay yourself first by getting in the business, but make sure you have cash available, because there are capital commitments. It's not just an investment on the front end. There's midterm and a host of other things that you got to make sure you're prepared for. And to the extent and where this applies, where you can actually functionally be involved, and at the same time ensure that your families is taken care of and your means at home is taken care of, then I would certainly say there's no crime in you maintaining another stream of income. And I can't stress this enough. I think this pandemic has proven that there is some value in considering that as you intend to grow your business. That's just a safe way to do it. And I think my life would be very different if I had just decided to jump in with JFK and start paying myself and not being aggressive with meeting our debt servicing, because that really created the opportunity for me to go back to the bank and get the capital we needed to continue to grow our business up to where it currently stands. Iris, any thoughts?
I'm going to just kind of add on to what you've talked about. From our perspective, from a prime operator perspective, when we look to getting into a joint venture, I mean, we're extremely selective, and I believe our other counterparts and other primes out there are as well. We're really looking for, solid business acumen, solid reputation in the community, in the business industry, etc. These are keys to a successful partnership. Think about it in the context of this is a business marriage. You're going into a legally binding agreement, and so you're in it for good times and in bad. The active participation between both parties and the communication is absolutely essential. So going into that, going in how Shane put, marketing yourself, that plays into what eventually will be the relationship. Know your strengths, know your skill set. What do you bring into that relationship? And because of that, it's a stronger relationship. The agreement that is then outlined becomes clearly defined roles and responsibilities between both parties. Relationships, research, resiliency. Shane's not kidding about the keep your day job, especially when you're starting out. Eventually this is, if you're getting certified and going to get certified, they will look that this is your full-time occupation. But when you're starting out and you're trying to build a business, you need capital to sustain yourself, to keep a roof over your house, etc. So, look at the big picture, have your eyes on your long-term goal, but make sure you're going about it sensibly. And lastly, I'll just reiterate about the certification from a different context. It can be cumbersome to go through the process. It's a lot of paperwork to initially go through it, but it is in your best interest. And you can talk about this with Maria and Christine, San Diego Department of Small Business. Highly encourage you to do that. They're there to help you. They're a fantastic resource. The reason I encourage you to get certified is this. Every single airport that receives federal funding, a portion of their business has to come from what they call disadvantaged business enterprises. And we're in an open and competitive environment. Most of the things that airports do, you have to bid on. If you have your certification, you and another company could be bidding on something. You could be scored equally. You have certification, they don't. That could be the difference in why you get selected. Shane?
Couldn't have said it better. Next slide, please. Okay, well, actually, this is the end of, yeah, I know this, but don't you love that picture? I laugh every time
No,
we
I
see it.
just think about what you said about this picture. It looks like we're doing a duet.
Yeah, Iris and I were gonna
love
sing
it.
for y'all, but we figured we don't want to deter y'all and make you go somewhere else, so we'll spare you the singing. But in all seriousness, this is really what it is about. It is a relationship. It's a partnership. Iris and I, we talk a lot. And I'm fortunate to actually spend my time in 2 airports with Iris in particular. But at this point, we've spoken a whole lot, and our contact information is on the slide right there. Again, more than happy to reach out, and we'll share as many nuggets of wisdom as we can. But if there are any questions out there, we'd be happy to field those at this point.
I don't see any new questions, but I just wanted to comment on certain things that you both mentioned. I love the whole marriage part of, think of it as a marriage. No matter what, that communication is key, being patient, understanding, being diligent. It's so admirable that both of you have that connection to be able to operate your joint venture as you do, and to emphasize the importance of AC certification. As Iris had mentioned, so Maria and I, in our department, so we have the administration of the ACDB certifications. We're one of the certifying agencies in California. It's the California Unified Certification Agency. If you haven't heard of that already, there's probably about 10 to 13 certifying agencies total in the state. And so wherever your principal place of business is, that will be your certifying agency. And so if you happen to be in San Diego, please reach out to Maria. She is the one that processes that. I can also step in to give information, but as long as you're a for-profit, 51% or more owned by a disadvantaged individual that manages and controls the business, you have under 56 million in gross receipts, 1.32 million in personal net worth, and you meet the definition of a small business according to the Small Business Administration, then you check a lot of the boxes and just go through that process. Thank you so much, Shane and Iris, for your presentation and all the insight that you've shared. I'd like to introduce.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'd like to introduce our next panelist. From SSP America, we have Heather Berry. Thank you, Heather, so much for being here. Looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you, Christine and Maria, and to the team. I'm excited that you were able to pull this together. We at SSP have been a part of the Meet the Primes there in San Diego, I think since the first year, and they've grown larger and larger each year. So it's really nice that you were able to put this together in this forum virtually. It's our new reality, but we're making it work. So it's good to see everyone. This is like a group of good friends on this forum here today. So let me just start out by saying a little bit about those that are on the line. So Iris and I had an opportunity to serve as board members for the AMAC Trade Board. So Iris, it's really good to see you in this format. Shane, when he showed the photo of the Palm Restaurant at JFK, he is actually a joint venture partner of ours at SSP. So it's fabulous to have one of our joint venture partners and to see him to have grown his business beyond SSP. And then of course, we will have Sarah with S-Levy Foods, who's up next, and she is our joint venture partner in San Diego. So it's really nice to be on the call. And then of course, we kicked it off with Courtney, who Hudson is a very close partner of ours with SSP. As Courtney mentioned, they really focus on retail. SSP focuses on food and beverage. So there have been several opportunities where SSP and Hudson have had an opportunity to partner together on some bids. So it's just really nice. It's a very small community, to those of you who are out there, to really help you understand just how close we work, even though we all may be under different tents with different companies, we still all come back together to one place. So with that, I am Heather Berry. I am Vice President of Strategic Partnerships for SSP America, and I manage all of our relationships with our joint venture partners and other partners across North America. So I'm really pleased to be here today to share with you some information about SSP in this space. Slide. There we go. So who exactly is SSP? You may not recognize us by the name SSP, but just to give you some perspective, we're in 130 airports across the world. We're in 280 rail stations globally. And pre-COVID, we had 30,000 employees across the world. We've been around for 60 years, and we have annual sales of $3.5 billion. So before COVID hit, we were considered the world's largest food concessionaire. We are publicly traded, and in North America, we have probably second market share to Host. Slide. Thank you. So this just lays out where we are globally, what we look like, what airports, and kind of what is our makeup. Slide. You probably will end up hearing some of the same things from me that you've heard. I think that there's definitely an undercurrent of messaging across the industry, particularly for those of us who really demand a business around joint ventures, and also with our rebuilding and our resilience around COVID. So this is where we are currently in the United States. These are the airports, and these are also most of the airports that we have joint venture relationships in. Slide. Great. So one of the things is, what is our philosophy? And we are a big company in North America, but we really, I would say we really think small, if you will. So any of us can pick up the phone, including Shane and Sarah, at any time and call our North American CEO, Michael Svadgis. And it just to say hello, or to say, here are my thoughts around the business. So I think that gives a really good perspective around who we are. We are all very attainable and approachable, and communication is one of the most important elements of our business. So we kick off every call, and right now with COVID, I'm doing a weekly call with all of our joint venture and partners across the United States. And so we kick off each call with our passion pitch. And we really mean that. And it is not just that call, but every call that we are on, we kick off the call with the passion pitch, and we live that passion. And we recognize someone for the work that they've done around those elements around passion. And so I think the first thing is we really live that and breathe that, and we are all passionate about being a food travel expert with SSP America. Slide. So our approach to the business is really each and every city that we go into has a culinary story to tell. Because we only do food and beverage, we really are trying to be the best in food and beverage. So we believe that every passenger that comes through the airport really wants to experience a culinary fascination, if you will. And so we bring that in our offers and in our offering to the passenger. And so we really believe that connecting around a table is important. And we really knew that pre-COVID, because you saw people just, if they weren't traveling together, when we started the community table approach, we would see people gathering around the tables and talking and just finding a sense of place together in an airport. And we really, we've built upon that across the country. And that is really what we do. We believe that restaurants are the heart and soul of any community. Slide. So what's our small business approach to those of you who are on this call right now? So we think when we come into a city, or there is a bid or an opportunity, or we know that an opportunity will be coming up, we get in front of the airport. So for me, my role, I want to get in front of the compliance department, and I want to understand what is their approach? What are they looking for? How can we meet or exceed what they want to see in that bid package and in that response? Of course, you need to review the ACDBE or certified list. And that is what all of us have been speaking on, the importance of being certified, being a part of that list. I go straight to the ACDBE list. And then of course, I want to go beyond that. So we in our bids look at any and all levels of participation that we can include. And so that includes architectural firms, construction, engineering, equipment suppliers, right? We have to have vents and hoods and all of those things, refrigerators, food and beverage suppliers and distributors. That's very important for the ongoing life of the contract, as well as other franchisors. Perhaps we would want to bid with some really cool franchisee locally to put that concept into the airport. And then, of course, potential joint venture partners, which are very important to us. Slide. So I guess let me build on the last slide. Sorry about that. I thought I had one extra slide in here to transition before what now. But we really find it important around the joint venture partnership, because that is really the soul of the business. And what we naturally like to do is we do achieve goal through all of those elements that I just mentioned, but of course through the joint venture. And so we typically will bring on one or multiple joint venture partners. In that role, that joint venture partner is usually responsible for one unit or multiple units, or a specific role within the business of the existing units. And so for us here in San Diego, Sarah Levy with S-Levy Foods is our joint venture partner, who you will hear from next. And it's really an important a relationship, right? Because you are in very close communication. You're working together at every turn. They are a part of the business. And so we work hand in glove. And so it is really a very important relationship. And so to go down that path, you want to be very comfortable with who you are engaging with in that joint venture. You want to understand what and how they operate. Have they been successful in their operations, maybe in other cities or other airports? If it's someone that may be new to the airport that you're joint venturing with, you may want to really spend time in their street side operations to understand how exactly do they operate. You want to understand their P&Ls. You want to understand the food cost. There are so many elements that go into really establishing a strong joint venture relationship that it is full transparency. And if a company or a partner is not willing to be transparent with you, I think that's a really big red flag. And that is something that you may want to pack your bags and walk away before you commence that venture. We at SSP, I mean, we really believe in transparency and really understanding what the partner's needs are both ways. I think that is very important that, you know, everyone is really communicating and putting their best foot forward for the success of the business. With COVID, of course, we've really had to employ a recovery, rebuilding strategy, and our partners have been there every step of the way. You know, there's been a lot of lost revenue this year, as you can only imagine. And so, as Shane mentioned earlier, the importance of capital and debt service. And so as soon as the week that COVID really sort of took control and things started shutting down, I personally called each and every joint venture partner and said, the first thing you need to do, I mean, literally the floor is falling. We don't know how far we're going to fall, but the most important thing you can do right now is call your banker and let them know that things are changing. And, you know, you don't want to lose hold of that. And then as soon as we were able to re-engage, you know, within a week or so, we started these weekly calls with our CEO and our EVP of the company here in North America. And it's just an update of everything we know going on. Partners share about what their experience is. And I think that just says a lot as we are evolving, because right now with COVID, every day is different. As you see, they're shutting down Europe right now. So that's a new indicator, you know, and how is that going to impact our market here? So what can you do right now if you want to be a part of this industry, which you do? It's a great industry, even though we're experiencing something right now. We are going to come out of this in the next year or two. And so you should be working on you. You all should be doing you, as they say, right? You should be keeping an eye on every level of your business. You should be engaging, picking up the phone, meeting people in the space, connecting, maintaining communication with those people that you have relationships already built up with. Don't lose those connections. Don't lose that level of engagement with people. It's very important, as well as to strike up new relationships. Or there are people that you wanted to meet maybe at the next conference that didn't happen. Pick up the phone. The Rolodex is there. The industry is small. If there's someone you want to meet or get connected to, I'm sure we all probably know or can connect you with that person. Just reach out to any one of us. But that is very important to continue to maintain engagement. Stay connected, as I said, with your industry contacts. And then, as I mentioned earlier, it is so critical that you maintain your finances. I know that cash necessarily may not be coming in the way that it once did, but it's very important that you are staying in very close communication with your bank, your banker, any of your debt service needs. You need to be working with those individuals very closely so that they understand what's going on in the market, what your needs are, and potentially what new opportunities may be coming down the pipe, so that you are ready and able to be there and compete for those opportunities. Are there certifications that you need to get? Don't let anything lag. Be first in queue to resubmit if it's just your annual. If there are other types of certifications out there, are there other states that you want to apply for certification beyond your home state? These are all very important things right now. While it's somewhat quiet, it's starting to pick up a little bit, it feels like, but it's still pretty quiet. And so this is the time for you to really be building your business, expanding your foothold across the country in other markets that you have an interest in participating in. Slide. These are just some photos of our spaces in San Diego. Slide. And this is just a rundown of our current operations, just so you can have a sense of what we currently operate in San Diego. Our current Director of Airport Operations is Ed Hartless, and he is amazing. Oscar Hernandez is our RVP of Operations. And then of course, Sarah Levy-Emberman, who will be up next to share with you her perspective on things. Slide. And again, we are very committed to inclusion and opportunity to any and everyone who has an interest in doing business with us. You know, it may or may not work, but we are certainly open to the conversation. Slide. Here's my contact information. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. I'm around and happy to answer them and certainly chat with you. With that, thank you.
Thank you so much, Heather, for that excellent panel presentation. I love that restaurants are the heart of your business in the community. And I'm curious, do you ever try to scout out for the best top chefs out there to do tastings and figure out, okay, how can we mix up and have different concepts and tastes to bring in the crowds and grow that interest?
Good question, Christine. And yes, so probably 85% or 90% of our business is typically street side locations that we retool to bring into an airport. So we look for the hippest, coolest chefs and restaurants and really try to work with them to bring them into an airport space. And so we love that taste of place. We really believe in that.
Wonderful. And that's great that you brought up to always stay connected with all industry experts and contacts. With this newfound time that we have, most of us working from home, it's good to consider doing the extra research, calling and emailing, and figuring out even in the future what type of airports or what airports in general have upcoming concession opportunities. So whether it be putting in a public records request to an airport or reaching out to their real estate team, you want to find out the terms of these concession contracts and see, okay, plan ahead. Once that 5, 7, 10-year hits, you want to make sure you make all those connections, align yourself to be financially stable, and then being able to have all the certifications and just aligning yourself for that success. So that's a good point that you make. Thank you so much again for that presentation. And I want to bring to the spotlight our final panelist, S-Levy Foods. We have the owner, Sarah Levy-Emberman. Thank you so much for being here today, and can't wait to hear from you on your presentation. Please proceed.
Thank you, Christine, and thank you, Maria, and the whole San Diego team for having me today. Yes, it's more fun in person, but this is really a nice event you put on. So thank you so much for including me again. I appreciate it. All right, next slide, please. My name is Sarah Emberman, and I'm the owner of S-Levy Foods. I started my company in 2004, making chocolate candies out of my mom's kitchen. And I first got certified as an ACDBE in 2009 in my home state. And since then, I'm now certified in 7 states. Next, please. So just to give you a little bit of background information, I started Sarah's Pastries and Candies, making chocolate out of my mom's kitchen. I cold called a lot of local grocery stores and gourmet stores. And I remember at first, they'd say, okay, yeah, that's great. We really like your product, but call us when you're out of your mom's kitchen. So it was definitely a slow start, but eventually built up a wholesale business to include 30 wholesale locations, and then had 2 retail stores in Chicago where we did wedding cakes, chocolate gift baskets. And in 2009, I wrote a cookbook, Sweetness, which I think you could still get on Amazon. And I think it is sold in the Hudson at Sarah's Candies in Terminal 2 in O'Hare. Next, please. So one of the highlights and one thing I'm proud of from those times was when I competed on the Food Network Challenge show, and we ended up winning the prize for the best 3-foot tall moving dinosaur cake, dinosaur shaped cake. So my company philosophy, it's very simple. One is treat people well. So that goes for employees, customers, vendors. I always say, I think being nice is underrated because I think it goes a long way. And return the ball. So, nothing fancy, just being where you say you're going to be, when you say you're going to be, returning emails and calls in a timely fashion, and, giving great customer service. I think everyone's going to make mistakes, but it's how you recover from those mistakes that matters the most. And of course, good old fashioned hard work. So if you take the example of the dinosaur cake, we actually made that cake twice and timed ourselves in 1 hour less time than they say they were going to give us, which was 8 hours. So we timed it in 7 before we even went on the show. So I just think hard work does pay off. Next, please. So today I am lucky enough to be a joint venture partner with SSP America. And so Heather and I get to spend a lot of time together now, not so much in person, but we get to talk all the time. I first met SSP in 2008 and first became joint venture partners with them in 2011 at JFK T4, where I also met Shane at that time. So other thing I'm very honored to have been given is the 2019 SSP America Joint Venture Partner Hall of Fame Award. So that is something that I'm very appreciative of SSP for. So today we're operating restaurants in Chicago Midway, JFK, San Diego, Sacramento, Phoenix, Sky Harbor, Los Angeles, and San Francisco Airport. Next, please. I also at the AXN conference met Mark Ricka from Hudson. So I do know Courtney as well and have loved working with her over the years. And thanks to them, to Mark and Hudson and Chicago Department of Aviation, I'm now a brand partner at the Sarah's Candies at O'Hare Terminal 2 with the second location, hopefully coming one of these days. Obviously, everything's a little off schedule, majorly off schedule these days at Chicago Midway. Next slide, please. So some of the RFPs and tips for a small business to win a contract. So usually there's 3 items typically listed in an RFP. So you have the scope of services, which is identifying the spaces, the hours of operation, et cetera. Then you have a list of proposal submittal requirements and then the checklist. So you want to make sure that all those boxes are being checked. The timeline differs greatly, but roughly you have about 2 to 3 months to submit after the RFP goes public. And in terms of making your response stand out, I'm really lucky to have SSP as partners, and we have an amazing marketing team there who really does a lot of the heavy lifting. So I remember talking to Lana about, hey, how do you do what you do? And so some of the information she relayed to me is, trying to make the document very visually appealing when by nature an RFP is very dense. We like to give the reader a break with imagery and negative space, but a lot of RFPs have space limits, making it hard to do so. And we want that wow factor. So we love to partner with local brands. Instead of only offering a traditional licensing model to our local restaurant partners, we offer a profit sharing partnership. So those restaurants actually have their team members helping to operate the airport location and sharing the profits. And to Christine's last question, in terms of going into the local markets and doing the hard work of selecting the best burger, the best pizza, the best coffee, I'll never forget probably 5 years ago now when SSP's Executive Vice President of Brands and Concepts, Pat Carroll, we were working on, gathering up our brand partners, and we were meeting like every hour on the hour with different places, and of course eating and eating and eating. And finally on day 3, we were supposed to be somewhere, and I texted him, I'm going to be late because the button popped off my pants, after all these days of eating in a row. So it's hard work, but we do it. Next slide, please. Tips for a strong joint venture partnership. So select your partner wisely. I talked to other joint venture or brand partners of theirs. I'm really lucky to have met SSP in 2009. And, what Heather said is true. I can tell you as a partner, not just as someone who works at SSP, but it's genuinely true. There's a level of passion that they live by. And I think, the truth is that when things are going well, of course it's easy for everyone to get along, but I think you see people's true colors when things aren't going right. And this time with COVID has definitely shown me who my partners are. And they've been incredible. So I'm really, really lucky. Heather's done a great job keeping that communication open with these weekly calls. So it's a forum where all the partners get together and we can ask questions. We hear updates in the industry, and you have the CEO, Michael Spagdis, and Pat Murray on all those calls. And it's really been a nice thing and has helped to keep us going. So in terms of critical decisions we've had to make to survive the pandemic, we've had to temporarily close some units. Making everything digital, as Courtney mentioned, has been super important. So you can scan a QR code and our menu will pop up and you can order and get your food without touching or interacting with anyone. So that I think has been something we've really done well. Limiting hours of operation, and in some cases limiting menus. And, of course, our partners at the airports, San Diego Airport, have been incredible as we work together to ask for rent relief and, eventually contract extensions. Now's the time we're watching every penny. So in terms, the other thing I often like to do, just these little small gestures to keep morale high. I remember when things first kind of came at us with COVID, and we had our director of operations and general managers working long hours and doing everything themselves, the dishes, everything. We sent little cakes from oh my gosh, how am I blanking on my favorite cake? Anyway, we sent Milk Bar. We sent cakes just to thank them and little cards just to say, hey, thank you so much for what you're doing. We also always send our S-Levy food managers birthday cards with just a little bit of a small check in there just to let them know we appreciate them. I think saying thank you and letting them know you see the work they do is really helpful in keeping morale high. And remember, there's nothing more important than compliance for a strong joint venture partnership. It's not sexy, but that's the truth. Next slide, please. So what is a joint venture? The Code of Federal Regulations, 49 CFR Part 23, defines a joint venture as an association of an ACDB firm and one or more other firms to carry out a single for-profit business enterprise for which the parties combine their property, capital efforts, skills, and knowledge, and in which the ACDB is responsible for a distinct, clearly defined portion of the work of the contract, and whose shares in the capital contribution, control, management, risks, and profits of the joint venture at a commensurate and are commensurate with its ownership interests. Joint venture entities are not certified as ACDBs. When an airport reviews or audits the ACDB participation, the following areas will be reviewed for participation. So like early on, 10 years ago, I didn't know this. So I just thought perhaps it would be helpful for some of you who have not gotten certified yet or newly certified to know this. It's not the most exciting material, but so one is capital contribution. The joint venture agreement should clearly state how much capital each partner is required to contribute. And Shane talked about this. That's definitely difficult getting funding because of that lack of collateral. But it's, we ended up having to go the private equity route because we actually got turned down by all the banks, but securing that capital is super important. Control. The ACDB participant must have control in proportion to their ownership interest and proportionate control of the governance of the joint venture. Management. The ACDBE participant must share in the overall management of the JV. Risks. Each of the participants in the JV must share in the risk of the business in proportion to their ownership interests and profits. Each of the participants must also share in the profits and losses in proportion to the ownership interest. Now, during COVID, this gets a little tricky. And on these ARA AMAC calls, weekly calls, one of the things that's happening is, we're lucky to have SSP as our partners, and they haven't done cash calls to have us come up with our pro rata share of losses. And the airports, I heard an airport director say, basically, they're going to go to bat to say, listen, if the primes were to ask the ACDBEs to put up their pro rata share of these losses during this pandemic, you could wipe out many of them and we wouldn't survive. So we're super appreciative of that. Next slide, please. JV compliance best practices. So we have specific S-Levy Foods units that we operate with our team of managers. So we have in T1 West, Pete's, Jetbox, and Urban Crave. The sales of our units generate our pro rata share of ownership of the joint venture. It's important to document all the work we do. So we learned that too. Don't just do the work, document it. For many of our airports, and including San Diego for sure, we submit activity reports with the following information. We have notes from our weekly manager calls and agendas. And I'm very lucky to have Alexa, who's worked with me now for 16 years, do those notes. So thank you, Alexa. I know you're on this call. Site visit forms, where when we go to the airport, we are looking at all sorts of different things. Are there any handwritten signs? Are the uniforms, clean, etc. Management committee notes, which we do quarterly with our partners. Manager reviews, food trends, and S-Levy Foods financials. And then if there's anything else like additional meetings that we attended, et cetera, we include those as well. Next, please. So some tips for emerging concessionaires. One is get involved. AMAC's been talked about a lot already, but it is, in case if there are any of you who don't know, the Airport Minority Advisory Council is the only national nonprofit trade association dedicated to promoting the full participation of minority-owned, women-owned, and disadvantaged business enterprise in contracting opportunities and professional development throughout the aviation and aerospace industries. So I am on the membership committee. If anyone would like more information about joining AMAC, please let me know. This is an amazing organization, and we have been relying on them more than usual even now for a lot of the relief packages and things like that. So I definitely suggest joining. And the other tip I always like to say is keep circling. So I remember early on when I first started my company back in 2004, and I applied for a company credit card and I got turned down. It said, you have to be in business at least 2 years. So I called the guy, Marvin Wallace, who signed the letter. And I just started talking. I'm like, we're going to be the next Fannie Mae and you should really give us a credit card. And sure enough, he reversed his decision and gave us one. So sometimes I think, don't take no for an answer. And eventually, it'll pay off. A lot of times it doesn't work too. So don't be discouraged when that doesn't work. Having a thick skin is another thing I've learned helps. And next, please. That is it. All right, thank you. This is my contact information. So feel free to reach out to me anytime if I can help with anything.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for sharing with us your story from beginning to end. I truly love your desserts, those clusters. Oh my goodness, I'm craving some right about now.
Thank you.
Some. Yes, and I'm glad that you brought up with the joint venture compliance. I want to applaud to your joint venture and to you and Alexa with Scott and also Heather for submitting those reports on a timely, quarterly, and annual basis. You have not had any delay, and you get a gold star, gold shiny star. And so you are a great example of sharing with everyone about what it takes to just stay in compliance, making sure you exceed what is expected, having everything, dotting all your I's, crossing your T's. And so I really, really appreciate all the information that you've shared today on being successful as a business and showing that there could be a match in heaven with any joint venture partnership. And all it took was building those relationships and making sure that those conferences, I want to emphasize, if anyone has not checked out AXSP AXN for Airport Experience News Conference, or AMAC is the trade organization that Sarah had mentioned. Their conference is called the Airport Diversity Conference. Is that right, Sarah? Yeah, so those two conferences.
Yeah, right, the yearly diversity conference, right, annual diversity conference.
So it's a good way to meet all the different airports throughout the nation, key stakeholders, decision makers, as well as concessionaire operators. And they even have an exhibit hall to take a look, and you can preview and see and taste and to see what is out there, the new and best and most innovative things. So thank you again. Thank you so much. Can we bring everyone to the screen real quick? All my panelists, Courtney and Shane.
I'm good.
Beautiful. Just wanted to bring up one question, and one of you could raise your hand, or however many people want to answer this question. Scott has asked, how do sign and graphic suppliers go about receiving bid solicitations from these vendors? Any thoughts on that?
Christine, could you repeat it one more time if you don't mind?
Yes. So the question asked is, how do signage and graphic suppliers go about with solicitation? So I guess if I rephrase that, do concessionaire operators have a need for graphic designers or signage for your stores, concession spaces, or is that handled depending on the airport? So I think that's the best way to reword that.
I can start, it's fine. I would say it goes back to, we all mentioned the list, and being on that list as a certified firm that specializes in what area, because we would go back and we would look at, that would be one of the first places that we would go at SSP, as we would go through to say, yes, we would need signs like blade signs and different signs like that to hang as we're doing our build out or changing any brands.
Okay. And speaking of build out, when you are looking for contractors to help with the build out, do you have a select list or database, or do you look for DBEs? I know that's not a part of the ACB participation counting, but there are lots of disadvantaged business enterprise contractors out there. What is everyone's practice in finding your vendors and contractors for build out? And whoever would like to go first, you could just raise your hand.
I mean, I can take that if you want.
Sure.
I think it's a matter of making sure that they have the experience capability to perform the scope of work that's being asked. So it's typically for us handled through our design and construction team. They'll put out, what the project is that they're looking for work to be done on. And it would be up to the construction firms to then do their due diligence and submit, their bid accordingly to whatever is being asked.
Okay, thank you. And how far in advance typically does your company do research in a future concession opportunity? Do you have someone with a role that has to seek out like business development to look for that? And then that way you can put a timeline together saying, okay, DFW and San Diego and all these projects, it's going to line up where you don't want to overlap and you want to be able to spread out the work and have the resources and staffing. What does that look like for each concessionaire operator? Whoever would like to answer towards that.
This is Courtney, I'll take that one. I mean, I think it's an ongoing effort. I mean, it's an ongoing, we don't wait till the project comes up. It's an ongoing outreach effort. For example, we participate in this every year. whether there's a project coming up or not. So you take it market by market, but I would just say that it's a regular ongoing exercise that we do. That's why everybody on this panel knows one another so well.
Right, that way you can text or call and be like, hey, this looks like a good project or contract for you to consider on, and you watch for each other, and basically you've built that connection where everyone is helping each other succeed in the end. That's wonderful. And I believe there might have been one other question that is on my other device. Let me just double check. I have a question from an individual that would like me to ask. Can you ask, so for all the panelists or whoever would like to answer this, do you hire professional service consultant firms to perform project management, construction management, or labor compliance services? And whoever would like to answer that.
I can do that one. I think that would build upon what Iris said, and we follow a very similar process. So again, that goes back to our design and construction group in-house, and we really overall project management and oversight for each of our projects, but we do look at bringing on different elements depending on the size and scope of the job. So again, that would be, working to track what opportunities are coming up, and if you see that has bid or who has been successful in that process, that would be one of the roles for the company's business development to reach out to these primes and to those companies that maybe, what I've seen often is if you do a pre-proposal meeting, for example, a lot of construction management, other related firms, professional services, whatever that might be, would attend those pre-concession, pre-award, pre-concession, pre-RFP meetings, and then give their cards out, make connections with each of the primes and bidders. From there, they would also take a look at the plan holder list or the sign-in sheet to also get a sense, and then their business development team would follow up with someone from our business development team to make that connection. So it's not that hard to do, really.
Okay, that's great information and detail. And we have time for just one last question because we have 2 minutes left. The question is, how does one connect with human resources or decision makers for employee benefits for either the individual concession or the joint venture partners? And if not, we can always follow up with this another time.
For SSP, we have an in-house HR group, so everything would run through that vice president of HR, Liska, would be responsible for any HR related matters, procurements, questions, etc.
Okay, thank you so much, Heather. All right, well, thank you everyone, all for your attendance and for everyone's participation. Sydney, would you be able to move to next one? Thank you. A special thank you to all panelists today, Sarah, Iris, Heather, Courtney, Shane. Thank you so much for spending these 90 minutes preparing these amazing presentations that have really provided so much invaluable information, insight towards being a successful business, just all these tips and important valuable nuggets that everyone can consider, and just knocking off a little checklist. Okay, am I ready? Am I ready to be able to take on a concession contract and align myself correctly? So thank you again for all your time and support towards this. Want to thank our support team that has been the background to make sure that this panel has gone as smooth as possible. We can't control technology, but we make the most of it and stay positive to get back on track. This is day 3 of 5 days of Meet the Prime events with so much information. Wanted to go over really quick the remaining of the schedule for the sessions. We have an afternoon panel at 3 p.m. today with 5 other airport concessionaire operators that we have at San Diego Airport. On November 3rd, we have various San Diego departments sharing about whether they have contract opportunities, programs, and additional information that will be important for businesses. And then finally, on our last day on November 4th, that is geared towards public agencies and business support services. You'll be able to hear from various San Diego public agencies on their programs for small local veterans, set-asides, and other information on Procurement Technical Assistance Center, Small Business Development Center to help businesses bridge with the government contracting marketplace. And then we end the final Meet the Primes with business credit incentives. You will learn how to navigate through incentives and credits that will provide a cash boost for your business and recover money that your business is entitled to. So make sure that when we receive, or you will receive a survey on the final day, and it's really important if you could share with us your feedback so we can improve our outreach and future Meet the Primes event, meet all your needs. And I want to bring Maria up to the spotlight as well. Maria?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Just wanted to take this opportunity to thank all the panelists. I know, like Christine said, you guys put a lot of effort into this, and we appreciate it because we see you as a partner. So thank you to everyone, and thank you to everybody that is participating. I hope you found this beneficial and that you do reach out to some of these partners if you're interested in working with them.
Thank you so much. We all care about the success of every business, and thank you so much to the panelists again. Just wanted to give a heads up that we will be closing the session in a couple seconds so that we can set up for the afternoon session. So take care, be safe, and we'll see you in the upcoming sessions. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.